So, we're coming to our last session of this conference on adapting coastal cities, and I'm very excited for the following Fireside chat interview I'm going to have. I would love to introduce Martin Powell. His career is defined by pioneering work in sustainability and urban development. He is the head of sustainability of AXA. Hi, Martin. Hi. Oh. It's a little wet here. Okay, I wasn't done with the introduction, but I'll just finish it now that you're here. Yeah, you began your path as an engineer and then transitioned into prominent organizations such as Siemens or the C40 Cities Group. And by being London's deputy mayor for environment, you played a crucial role in shaping policies for one of the world's largest cities. So welcome today.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to understand a little bit better which perspective you're having today, can you tell us a little bit more about your background and what you do at the moment?
Great, thanks. Firstly, this picture was taken a long time ago, so it's a little younger.
You're still looking great.
I've been at AXA almost exactly 1 year. We have a new strategy for our whole sustainability topic, which I'm very excited about. I've been in these roles for many years, and it's been fascinating to see how different companies approach this topic. I did a 4-year term in the mayor's office, as you said, so like Mathieu, a deputy mayor for London, which is why we both still wear ties. I think it's an old habit.
It's not really the dress code here, but...
I worked for Boris Johnson, and I really want to stress I never voted for him. Thank you. And in fact, I never voted for the party either, so another round of applause. Thank you. But what working in local government and in a big city like London teaches you is that in the end, people care about very limited number of things. You know, they care about where they live, you know, their house. They care about how they move around. People care about access to high-quality green space. And after that, people really don't care so much. If you get those 3 things right, you kind of do a good job. So it's very interesting when you look at a big city from the perspective of what people really care about. It really gives you a sense of you know, how you address those problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And coming back to your current role working in the insurance industry, what would you say is the role of the insurance industry when it comes to the adaptation of coastal cities to the challenges of climate change and rising sea levels?
So I don't honestly believe that you can fully adapt any city in the world if the insurance industry doesn't actually unlock the potential to do that. Mm. The business cases that you will develop for investing in physical infrastructure to protect the people of your city will come from analysis that the insurance industry will provide. I mean, the whole investment profile of a city is generated from what it costs to make something, to do something, physical infrastructure that protects you from flooding or extreme events. Mm-hmm. But you have to make the business case for it. And I'll give you a great example. In Shanghai, they raised $30 billion to completely upgrade the water network across the city, and because of the threat of flooding. And it's fascinating if you think about how they will have generated that figure. Will be assessing the cost of not doing it, the cost to all the businesses that would leave Shanghai if they got flooded, to the people that no longer want to live in a place where they can't get insurance or they can't get coverage for where they live, or the transport system is down because of a particular event. So they've in a very mature way, they've calculated that cost, all the externalities associated with it, including poor health, including the effects of flooding on people's well-being, how you can drink fresh water or not, how you breathe clean air or not. All of these things were calculated to come up with that figure. So it's something which I think in Europe we could probably be better at, is assessing all of those externalities to do it.
And for that, you need to put this long-term perspective on. Like Mathieu just said before, that we're always waiting for the disaster to happen rather than having this long-term perspective. Okay, what happens if we don't do this now? So what would you say, like, what are measures that can insurance companies take to support the resilience of these cities?
So resilience comes for me in two parts. One is obviously the physical resilience. You want to protect your city in the best way you can. Not just flood protection, but also, as an industry. Well, actually, my colleagues here in AXA France have just released something they call the Green Guarantee, and it's a really fantastic idea. So if you have an incident and you have to rebuild back your property, that will pay 50% of the contribution to building it back better, with better insulation, with renewable energy, with recycled products, etc. And it's absolutely really fantastic, and it was only released, I think, a couple of weeks ago. After COVID, everybody talked a lot about we have to build back better, all these lessons that we've learned. But we're all back driving, we're all back doing what we did before, So for me, building back better is having something that helps ensure the future of our society. So the physical infrastructure investment is key. But actually, part of our new strategy is really focusing much more on social resilience, social infrastructure, ensuring people's well-being, ensuring that we are protecting the very businesses that serve our cities. And if you think about, let's say, a farmer or a fisherman that ran a business for the last few years, once a year they may get hit by a storm that really, really impacts their business. And they'll recover from it and they'll go back to work, and that's great. But now the same farmer and the same fisherman's been hitting twice a year, and they can't go back, and they lose their business. But what's worse is that the cities that they provide goods and services to no longer get the fish, the farm products, the ecosystem services that they provide for the city. And unfortunately, this causes increased costs for people. It causes a lack of supply in all sorts of areas. So for us, when you look at adapting our future cities, we have to think about the very businesses, the small and medium enterprises that actually run those cities. I mean, over 80% of Paris is run by small and medium enterprises. And if we're not protecting them from the future risks, then we're really in trouble.
You mentioned various different stakeholder groups now that we need to incorporate to finally start building back better again. How would you say can collaboration between these different actors who sometimes have different end goals, I would say, like how can collaboration between governments, insurance industry, research facilities, and the communities itself work to strengthen this adaptability? So
one of our goals this year is to go much further in bridging understanding. So we really want people to trust information that we provide. We have an amazing research fund, which is part of our sustainability setup. We give a lot of money away every year to leading academic institutions to do research in impacts on cities, impacts on climate change, impacts on social infrastructure, on health. So a whole range of topics. And we want to really better connect this to the sustainability objectives that we are pushing as a company. And we want people to feel that this information they can act on, they can really make a difference on. I think this also helps the governments. I mean, a company like ours, we have a huge footprint here in Paris, but we have also offices in cities all across the world. So So our goal is to work much more closely with those local institutions to ensure that we can provide and really help provide an evidence base for what's next. The other thing we want to do is also help focus on what we see as the really big issues. So I know we talked earlier about climate change mitigation. It's an important topic for us. We have targets in our invested emissions. We have targets in our insured associated emissions. We have targets as a company on our own operation. But actually, where the world needs to start focusing much more is on the climate transition. The big businesses, the big emitters that we can help decarbonize, we can help produce steel in a green way, then you're really reducing the amount of CO2 that we're consuming. So across all of those sectors, particularly the energy sector, we want to have a bigger role. I mean, I'll give you another example, actually. As a company globally, we have a carbon footprint of a little over 100,000 tons. And it sounds like a lot, but it's really not in the grand scheme of things. We're looking at one project, carbon capture and storage project, which is over a 3-year period is going to capture 60 million tons of CO2. So our efforts should be focused with these energy companies looking to do those kind of projects. And to put 60 million tons in perspective, Paris emits around 20 million tons a year. So 3 times the amount of Paris in just one great storage project is quite a material impact that we want to focus on. And the other piece, of course, is adapting cities to the threats of climate change, which is obviously the topic of this. But we want to also do that by being much closer to our customers. This is the role that we as a company can play, giving them much better advice, giving them a real understanding of how they can protect their business for the future. And those businesses are located in these big cities. So being a really supportive partner to them through that kind of transition, but also helping them protect against that future risk.
You just touched upon solutions to adapt to our changing climate, more on a high-level perspective from climate change. What innovative technologies or approaches are being explored to actually secure these cities? Do you have any examples on that topic for us?
So lots of technology. I mean, we can also start about innovation in the services, products that we look at and provide. We provide things like parametric insurance, which helps protect coral reefs that are just off the shore of many of these coastal cities, with very, very fast responses to protecting them and financing their recovery. As I said, things like the green guarantee, so our own products are really beginning to think much more about how people can improve the resilience for their future. But also, I think our role, both as an investor and an insurer, has to be de-risking some of the new innovative technologies that are out there. There's a huge advancement in the carbon capture and storage technologies. We need to provide the evidence, the risk, and understand the risk of doing those kind of projects. We need to underwrite them to ensure that all the big investors can then really pile all the money in that's needed to do them. So I think innovation comes from our perspective, from how you de-risk future new technology in order to deploy it at scale. And that's so we want to trigger that transformation. We want to be that kind of agent of change for the industry, but also for the cities that we serve.
Touching upon the risk assessment you just mentioned, it's a very complex and interconnected, the nature of climate risk itself. How do you approach this holistic risk management when we have immediate threats, but we also need to have this long-term projection?
So we, as you can imagine, we have lots of models that look at flood risk, that look at risk from extreme events. We have a huge number of models across our businesses. I'm looking at somebody in our Excel business, which do huge amounts of modeling around this topic. Providing that information in advance for people so that the impact of these events is already reduced is something really big we can do to support and help society. If people are aware ahead of the big events, I think it's better than using the bigger event as an excuse to invest or to do the infrastructure that's needed. But I think just generally people, if they have better knowledge in understanding what's coming, what they can do to prepare to get through those events and then potentially improve where they live or where they work, then I think that's the incremental step that will come, and we have a big role in doing that. I know we talked a little bit about oceans. I think Henk talked about oceans as well. Keeping and providing a healthy ocean for coastal cities is really key. The ocean is a huge sink for heat. Unfortunately, we're heating it a little too fast. But if we can, using nature-based solutions, if we can really think about how we use the ocean to abate CO2, to sequester it, to store it properly, we can actually buy ourselves a little more time to continue the race to mitigate and reduce the amount of CO2 that we're producing. So we're very, very focused on that. We're a board member of the Ocean Risk and Resilience Alliance, and this is, I was actually on a call last night with them. I think this is also an increasingly important area for coastal cities for the future. A healthy ocean that's providing them with food, that's providing them with, that's providing the planet with an ability to help secure our future and buy us a little bit more time is something that we also want to focus on in the next few years.
Coming back to what you just said on buying more time, I'm still wondering, like, who's buying that time? Like, who's paying for that time? Mathieu said before, it's really hard to secure long-term funding with a long-term perspective on how, like, to keep the ocean safe, to keep the ocean healthy. What's your perspective, I don't know, from either an insurance point of view or also as your previous role as deputy mayor? How can we secure this funding for this large-scale adaptation projects? And what role can either the private sector or the industry sector play?
I mean, one thing we do, we work with our local communities, our local cities, to help them build those business cases. I think from my experience, and I'd be interested in hearing from Mathieu afterwards, but the cities aren't particularly good at providing high-quality evidence to their national governments to secure that kind of funding. I think if they can demonstrate the impact of these events, demonstrate what investment they need to do to overcome it, factor in all those externalities that show the impact on health, the impact on society, I honestly think that more funding would pour into those cities. And we as a big business have a role in helping those cities build those business cases. So I'm really excited to be part of that, and we really want to do that going forward. But it's absolutely key providing that evidence base, convincing people to give you serious investment. You have to show them what the cost of inaction is. And I can also tell you the cost of extreme weather events for the last 20 years has been $16 million an hour. So just hold that number in your head. So if you can just reduce the impact of those events, the impact on society, by protecting our infrastructure, our people a little bit better, and bring that number down, then all of society will benefit.
When you support these cities in gathering the evidence and the data, do you feel like the cities do work together already, or do you enhance them to work together?
There's lots of great city networks, C40 cities, but there's ICLEI, there's a number where they share best practices. I think cities are pretty good at doing it, helping each other with a carbon inventory, so they really understand where their emissions are coming from. I think developing a similar adaptation protocol where they really understand the risk is possibly a good step that cities can take. I know they're doing it already, but building up that database of knowledge is going to be really key going forward.
Yeah. So interesting to hear from you. I'm sure we could talk another hour on the stage, but unfortunately our time is nearly up. As a last question, based on this discussion today and everything you've heard from the other panelists, what are key takeaways for you you would like to give to policymakers, urban planners, to everyone in this room? What should people take home?
So I hate preaching to people because I'm not in a position to do it. But one thing I've learned is, when I took this role on at AXA, I had a very, very supported management team above me. The company is very committed to this. But for me, is play where you can make a difference. Where we believe we can make a difference is in climate change transition, in adaptation, in social inclusion, really ensuring people don't get left behind. These are places where, as a business, we can really make an impact, and that's therefore where we focus on. So I think everybody can do their own thing. I have a house which is zero carbon, so in my own personal life, I choose to try and make a difference. I assume many of you are very good recyclers. I'm not so good. I should be better. But really just play where you think you can make a difference and have an impact, and that's really what we're trying to do at AXA.
Thank you so much for all your insights today. Warm applause.
Thank you.